All right, judges, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Molly Russell. I'm an attorney with Legal Aid of West Virginia, and I specialize in domestic violence law. And this is my first year judging the We the People National Contest. Michael?
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Anderson. I am the former professor, former college administrator, and now work with Native American students here in northern Minnesota. This is my 16th national finals.
And I'm Ed Philpott. I'm a trial lawyer. My practice is my practice is statewide. My office is in central New Hampshire. And this is my third year judging the national finals.
Okay, students, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Richard Barney.
Hi, my name is Hunter Dello.
Hello, my name is Matthew Shoemaker, and our teacher is Mr. Berner.
And I just want to say before I sign out, thank you guys very much for volunteering your time on a Saturday. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, and before we start, just want to make sure you guys are the New York Wild team.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Unit 4. How have the values and principles embodied in the Constitution shaped American institutions and practices? Question 1. It would be inconsistent with the constitutional separation of the executive and legislative powers to let the prerogative or pardon power be exercised by the latter. What were the framers' reasons for giving the president the pardon power? Do you agree or disagree with them? Bullet point 1. According to the framer, James Wilson, if the president abuses the pardon power, he can be impeached and prosecuted. Do you agree with Wilson? Why or why not? Bullet point 2. In your opinion, what constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors?
Thank you. May we begin?
You may.
Thank you. Everything written inside the Constitution had to be well planned out to ensure the success of the future of our nation. Considering there were 3 drafts of the Constitution before it became what we know today, a lot of consideration went into this important document. One of these heavily considered ideals, a question still debated and not answered to this day, is the pardon power.
Famously known French philosopher Voltaire once said, "We are full of weakness and errors. Let us mutually pardon each other our follies. It is the first law of nature." Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution gives the president the power to pardon under 2 limitations in doing so. In order to issue a pardon, firstly, a federal crime has to be violated, and secondly, the president cannot issue a pardon in occurrences of an impeachment.
Alexander Hamilton was the first to propose the pardon power in the Constitutional Convention, saying, "In seasons of insurrection or rebellion, there are often critical movements where a well-timed offered pardon to the insurgents or rebels may restore the tranquility of the Commonwealth." Agreeing with Hamilton, the framers added the power to pardon to the Constitution, giving it to the president.
The framers deliberately separated the judicial function of the government from the pardon power, coinciding with the concern of English jurist William Blackstone, saying that the power of judging and pardoning should not be delegated to the same entity. This reason is why we agree with the framers that the pardon power should be delegated to the president. Being that he or she is the chief executive of the United States, the power to exonerate a person should be allotted to the president.
James Wilson stated that if the president abuses the pardon power, he can be impeached and prosecuted. But how the word abuse is interpreted can change the outcome of any investigation towards the president. Modern interpretations have made this abundantly clear. Discrepancies like this are one of the reasons why most presidents use their power to pardon at the end of their presidency, excluding former President Donald Trump, who used this executive power the first summer of his presidency to pardon Joseph Arpaio.
Legal scholar Cass Sunstein noted that if the president used his pardon power to shelter the people who were involved in crimes that the president himself may have been a part of, that can be an impeachable offense. So theoretically, if Trump pardoned any arrested Capitol rioter, that can be an impeachable offense if you argue that Trump incited insurrection, causing the storming of the Capitol on January 6th. This is why we agree with James Wilson that abusing the power to pardon should be an impeachable offense and the offender should be prosecuted.
Since the President of the United States is in an extremely unique situation, they are put against a higher set of standards and regulations compared to the normal citizen. The term high crimes and misdemeanors has been used since 1386 in English Parliament as a ground necessary to impeach someone from the crown.
In the case of former President Donald Trump, his first impeachment was on the basis of high crimes and misdemeanors relating to the 2020 election and Ukraine. The accusations against Trump all created possible reasons for impeachment. However, Trump was acquitted by the Senate of these crimes after a partisan 51-49 vote. Even though there were possible signs of high crimes and/or misdemeanors committed, it was not deemed so by the Senate. So we continue to debate today on what a high crime or misdemeanor is.
Any crime committed by an elected official can be deemed a high crime or misdemeanor. Depending on the severity of the crime and what position the government they hold, political officials are held to a higher standard than normal citizens. So their punishments for similar crimes are also of a higher standard.
The equivocal interpretations of the president's ability to pardon makes it controversial. Not having boundaries around the specifics creates flaws within the power to pardon. With most presidents using this pardon power at the end of their first 4 terms, this is what fabricates the people to be skeptical of this power.
Thank you. So you had stated that one of the reasons for a pardon is to restore tranquility of the Commonwealth. Do you believe that pardoning the insurrectionists would do that?
Well, because there is such a political divide with this country, depending on whether you believe whether that the election was rigged or not. So if there was an opportunity to pardon any arrested rioters, that it may be a possible choice to cause peace between the two parties, but I still believe that there is such a divide within this country that it would almost mean nothing because of the power that these mobs have and these groups have with their mentality.
President Abraham Lincoln actually granted commutation to some of the leaders in the Confederate Army in order to relieve tensions in the country, because at the time the nation was so divided.
With the divide, go ahead.
But since the nation was so divided, Abraham Lincoln wanted to try and bring everyone together and try and unite the people. However, Congress decided that they wanted to have the Southern states and the Confederacy, they wanted to have half of them pledge allegiance to the Union so that they could be pardoned, which is what came up with the Wade-Davis bill.
The framers of the Constitution had the fear of the pardon power becoming too powerful and abusive, and that is why they added Article 4, Section 4 to the Constitution, which made it so that the president can be impeached under the pardon power. And James Wilson and Alexander Hamilton both stated that if the president ever abused the pardon power, that can be an impeachable offense.
So let's clarify. I want to be absolutely certain of your point. I think you were asking, should President Biden restore unity by pardoning the insurrectionists? Yes or no?
As I stated, I believe that it could be a possible means to create peace, but I still believe that because of issues like false information and media trying to push a specific frame as to their listeners, I think that that is not the only way that is necessary to try and create peace between these two political parties. But it is a possible way to maybe get the ball rolling.
How about for the Black Lives protesters that were arrested in Washington, D.C. under federal crimes? Would it be restorative to pardon all the Black Lives Matters protesters who were arrested?
Well, if we look at the case of Derek Chauvin, there was a lot of videos of crowds of people that were very happy with the outcome and basically saying this is step one of reforming. This is step one of us getting our lives back. And
but those weren't federal crimes. Those are state crimes. Pardon only refers to federal. The ones that were protesting in front of the White House and were pushed away and arrested in front of the church where President Bush held up a Bible, should we restore justice, restore unity by pardoning all those protesters who were arrested?
Well, again, the whole point, as we've seen throughout history, is to try and create a point of peace and try and create a point of tranquility so that we can possibly move on into the future. So I believe that if they do choose to pardon those anyone arrested while they were protesting, that could create a point of peace. As we saw with George Washington when he pardoned the Whiskey Rebellions, that was a point where we chose to try and create peace and ease tensions between these two groups.
If we feel that pardoning these people could substantially change the inequality in our country, and say when we pardon these people, people were being treated more equally today, then that would be grounds for pardoning these people.
Well, when you say these people, we're talking about two categories of people, aren't we? We're talking about January 6th insurrectionists, and we're talking about Black Lives Matter protesters. Is the argument the same for both groups? For or against pardoning them?
I guess you could argue that because the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, that would be categorized under more of domestic terrorism. So really, if we're to pardon them, then we would also have to think about back when in the early 2000s with the Bush administration and the detentions of suspected terrorists in Guantanamo Bay. So if we were to say if they committed a crime and we pardoned them for their quote unquote terrorist acts, we would essentially have to do the exact same thing with the Capitol rioters, because we are trying to push forward this agenda of creating peace, trying to ease tension between these two political parties, and trying to further the betterment of the United States.
Throughout history, through pardons, we have seen how they have helped restore the Commonwealth, but also sometimes, like with Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon, when he pardoned Richard Nixon, he got a lot of backlash from the people. But when he did that, that's what he thought was best for the country at that time.
So really, it's up into interpretations of Congress and the President of the United States as to whether it is a correct decision for the common good of the nation.
So what standards should the president apply then when deciding whether a pardon is for the good of the nation or not?
Well, there's basically four limits to the pardon power. The president cannot pardon state crimes. The president cannot pardon or remove federal civil liability. The president cannot pardon an impeachment, and the president cannot pardon crimes that have not already occurred. So it's not directly stated in any of the founding documents what the limitations are, because the founding fathers believed that the executive branch was not the top branch of the government. They believed that the legislative branch was actually the top branch. So it was not it's a more vague way to describe what this pardon power is. So when we have such examples of pardoning impeachments or pardoning crimes that haven't been committed yet, it's kind of hard to create such a regulation for this pardon power because of how incredible the power is.
And the problem with the presidential pardon power is that it is the only power in the Constitution that is left unchecked. So I feel that we should create an amendment which would give Congress the power of a 2/3 vote where they could overturn a presidential pardon. Because to me, it truly doesn't make any sense why every other power can be checked by another branch of government, but this one cannot.
Yeah, but okay, isn't the prosecution of crime and incarceration and so forth, aren't those executive functions? Wouldn't that be allowing an intrusion by the legislature into the executive function?
You can mail in your answers.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at the
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Actually, I'm sorry. Can you restate the question, please?
Your time's
Your
up
time is
anyways.
up.
Oh, okay.
That's what we were laughing about, because the time had come up right as you asked the question.
Okay.
And he blurted out the rest of it.
All right, good job, gentlemen, and we're going to go through and give some comments as I'm sure you've been through this process all day. So I enjoyed our discussion of restoring tranquility of the Commonwealth and the difference between Black Lives Matter movement and the insurrectionists. I would like to have seen you delve a little, or maybe a more finite line. If one included, I think it can between insurrection and the Black Lives Matter movement. I really liked your final point about it's the only power left unchecked. And arguably, it's not left unchecked because the threat of impeachment exists, but it's ineffective. So I thought that was a very solid, very strong point as to why an amendment should be done. Overall, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Michael?
Okay, I was baiting you a little bit in case you didn't notice to talk about the difference, say yes to one in terms of pardons, the insurrectionists or the Black Lives Matters, or the other, to see, because I really think your point seemed to be, and it resonated with me, that you have some regard for the original intent of what the pardon power was supposed to be about. And that it was controversial at the time, but yet the idea of restoration of tranquility sort of ruled the day. So that's why I went down that path to try to see if you would see either one of those as restorative. I think I can see it both ways, which is the difficulty of it. I also like the idea, your discussion was good, is what I'm saying to you on that issue. The 2/3 amendment, or 2/3 vote, excuse me, in order to allow the Congress to have check over pardon, not a bad idea. But I think we ought to at least think about that and see if that has legs. And I'm always curious about the higher set of standards for people who are in elected office. I've always thought about equality under the law, and I've always thought about the rule of law, meaning that everything in the law applies to all of us equally, whether we're in office or not. That's probably another conversation, but I thought you did a nice job bringing up critical points.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As did I. I think you did a good job sticking with your original premise that these pardons should be analyzed in light of what the original intent was. We were pressing you to get an answer. Should one of them be, should one of the groups or both of the groups or neither of the groups be pardoned in light of that original standard? And I think you deftly sidestepped giving a direct answer.
Yeah, you have a future in politics.
Right. The only thing I would suggest is don't be afraid of answering one of those questions directly, because the judges are not looking for you to agree with us or our philosophies or to guess even what those are. It's just when you take your position, how do you defend it? So good job and a great discussion, and thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I definitely would have loved to answer your question, though.
Send them an email.
Send me
Yes,
an email.
Thanks again for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Congratulations to the students on your participation and effort today.